Malcolm-Jamal Warner's sudden and tragic death left many people shocked. But for those who've been paying attention to how Hollywood treats strong, independent-minded black men, it didn't come as a complete surprise. Katt Williams, who has never held back when it comes to calling out the dark truths behind the entertainment industry, has now spoken out, and what he's saying is forcing people to take a second look. According to Katt, there's more to this story than just a tragic accident. It may have been an orchestrated message, a setup even for a man who never played by Hollywood's rules. Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't just another actor. He was thoughtful, outspoken, grounded, and always careful about the roles he accepted. He avoided the trap of clownish roles and refused to degrade himself for fame. And in an industry that often rewards submission over substance, that made him a target. The official story says Malcolm drowned while vacationing in Costa Rica with his young daughter. The media reported that a dangerous rip current swept him away and that by the time help arrived, it was too late. But the details are raising questions. There were signs all over the beach warning about the rip currents. There were no lifeguards on duty that day because emergency resources had been diverted elsewhere after previous incidents. A surfer who happened to be a trained lifeguard pulled Malcolm from the water but couldn't save him. The autopsy later confirmed it was an accidental drowning. But the timing, the conditions, and the man involved someone who is healthy, cautious, and not known for taking wild risks have led many to believe there may be more behind the headlines. Katt Williams has been warning for years about what happens to black entertainers who don't play along. He says that when you refuse to wear the dress, refuse to do the buffoonery, and refuse to sell out, you become a problem. The industry doesn't support you. Instead, it isolates you. Katt himself has been through it, painted as crazy, blacklisted, dragged through the media not because he lacked talent, but because he spoke the truth and didn't bow down. And now he's pointing at Malcolm's story as another example of how the system eliminates or discredits those who won't comply. Malcolm never chased the spotlight. After his success on The Cosby Show as Theo Huxtable, he could have cashed in, taken on big, ridiculous roles, and followed the formula. But he didn't. He chose roles with meaning. He focused on family. He produced thoughtful content. Spoke out about stereotypes in media, especially about how black men are portrayed as one-dimensional characters, either criminals or clowns. Malcolm didn't want to be part of that. And according to Katt Williams, that's exactly why he stopped. Getting calls why the industry turned its back on him until it was too late. When Malcolm passed, suddenly all the blogs, celebs, and networks started posting tributes and praising his legacy. But where was that love while he was alive? That's what's got Katt and many fans speaking up. It's the same pattern over and over again. A strong black man stands firm, refuses to play the fool, and gets ignored while alive. Then, after his death, the same system that rejected him suddenly turns around to celebrate him like they were always supporters. It's performative. It's hollow. And it's disrespectful to the legacy Malcolm built with intention, dignity, and independence. The drowning itself doesn't sit right with a lot of people. Yes, rip currents are dangerous. Yes, accidents happen. But why was there no lifeguard presence that day on a beach known for deadly waters? Why were emergency crews already reassigned elsewhere, leaving that particular area unprotected? Malcolm was with his daughter. He was likely cautious, not reckless. According to reports, he was trying to protect her when he got caught in the current. That's who he was, a protector, a father, a man who led with care. Even in his final moments, he was putting someone else first. That speaks volumes about his character. Let's talk about the Hollywood patterns Katt has exposed. He's repeatedly said that there's an unspoken ritual of humiliation for black men in the entertainment business. They want to see you in a dress, playing a joke, undermining your manhood. And when you refuse, they find ways to push you out. Katt said, "Show me one black man who wore a dress in Hollywood and didn't get rewarded." That may sound extreme, To some, but when you look at the careers of certain comedians and actors who leaned into the foolish roles, you start seeing the pattern. They get platforms, they get praise, they get invited everywhere. Meanwhile, the serious principled ones get ignored. Malcolm didn't wear the dress. He didn't play the fool. He stood on something. The industry didn't like it. Malcolm was educated, articulate, and passionate about showing Black people in a positive and realistic light. He created a podcast called Not All Hood to push back against stereotypes. He challenged mainstream narratives and used his platform to encourage accountability in Black music, media, and storytelling. He wasn't trying to cancel anyone, but he was asking for better. He wanted more for the culture. That's not popular in an industry that profits from negativity, division, and spectacle. And let's not forget, Malcolm was also a strong father figure. He had one daughter, stayed out of drama, had no public scandal, and was deeply involved in his child's life. He even talked openly in interviews about the importance of fatherhood, about how he pulled his daughter out of his wife during delivery, and how that moment changed him forever. He moved with purpose. He chose his family over fame, and that made him rare in a world where people chase attention at any cost. Now here's where the conspiracy starts creeping in. When people like Malcolm start speaking up, refusing roles, producing their own content, calling out industry norms, they become threats. Quiet threats, but threats nonetheless. Katt Williams believes that these types of people get silenced. Maybe not always violently, but in ways that send a message. Cut off their opportunities, smear their reputation, or worse, make it look like a tragic accident. Katt's not saying every death is a setup, but he's making us look at the pattern. Dave Chappelle spoke out and disappeared for a while. Katt spoke out and got labeled crazy. Malcolm didn't play along, and now he's gone too soon. Even more disturbing is how quickly Hollywood tried to flip the narrative. Just days after Malcolm's death, news outlets, studios, and celebrities who hadn't mentioned his name in years were suddenly calling him a legend. Streaming services are digging up his old content. Tribute specials are in the works. CBS and ABC are posting emotional throwbacks. But where was all this when he was alive and struggling to get meaningful roles? It's the same thing they did to so many before him: Nipsey Hussle, Chadwick Boseman, even Michael Jackson. Love after death, silence during life. It's all too familiar. Malcolm wasn't perfect, but he was real. He challenged hip-hop's toxic trends. He spoke against the N-word and the glorification of violence in Black music. He wasn't trying to police art, but he did ask, why do we only go viral when we're tearing each other down? He pushed for growth, for evolution, for deeper conversations. And in a world full of noise, that kind of clarity and maturity stands out. It also makes you unpopular with those who profit off the dysfunction. In one of his final public statements, Malcolm wrote an op calling out how white executives still control most narratives about Black life on screen. He said even when Black creators are handed the mic, the scripts are still filtered through a white lens. The suits pretend to support diversity, but the message stays the same: Black people shown as angry, poor, violent, or comic relief. Malcolm wasn't having it. He wanted better stories, stories of strength, intellect, and complexity. But those weren't the kinds of stories Hollywood wanted to fund. His own agents told him he was too serious, not marketable. That's code for too real, so they stopped calling. That's how they do you. And now Katt Williams is standing up for him, saying this wasn't just a freak accident. It might have been a warning, a silencing, or at the very least a result of being systemically pushed aside and unprotected. And now the industry wants to act like they always valued him. It's insulting. Katt's calling it out for what it is: damage control, not genuine respect. The truth is, Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing purpose. He stayed in his lane, even when it meant being forgotten. He created projects that uplifted the community. He raised his daughter with love and intention. He moved through life with grace and discipline. And that's the part the world needs to remember. Not just the Cosby Show years, but the decades after, where he quietly built a life of integrity. So let's honor Malcolm properly, not with empty tributes or opportunistic streaming promos, but by following his example. Stand for something. Speak up when it's not popular. Refuse to be boxed in. Demand better representation. Call out the hypocrisy. And most importantly, support those who are doing the work before they die. Malcolm's story is heartbreaking, but it's also a blueprint. A guide for how to walk in truth even when the spotlight fades. He didn't sell out. He didn't fold. He didn't play the game. That made him dangerous to a system that thrives on control. Katt Williams saw the truth. He's been saying it for years. And now, with Malcolm gone, more people are finally listening.